Hey guys, it's Danny and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So as Halloween is approaching, I thought I would show you today how I created this super creepy reattached hand makeup. Now this is so much fun to do. I absolutely love doing special effects makeups like this, so I hope you guys like this video. If you want to find out how I did this, just stay tuned. Okay, so to get started, what you want to do is grab this product here. Now this is Artex by Kryolan and it is a silicone modelling plastic, and it's absolutely fantastic for creating any sort of wound or cuts or burns on the skin. It's really good for adding texture and dimension to any sort of special effects look. Now with this product you get two little jars. You get part A and part B, and what you need to do is mix equal parts of these together, and it creates this thick sort of paste which you can then apply to the skin and create these really gory effects. Now the only thing I will say at this point is when you are mixing these two together, be very careful not to contaminate the jars with the other component or with the other product. So don't get any of part A in part B or any of B in A, because what that's going to do is set in the jar and you've ruined your product. Okay, so once you've got those two parts mixed together, you then want to apply this to your wrist using a palette knife or any other sort of flat, blunt sculpting tool or something, and you want to apply this to your wrist and make the band all the way around about 1 inch wide. Now the most important part of this step is to make sure that the edges of the silicone blend seamlessly into your skin so you don't get a harsh line. Now the curing time of this is around about 5 to 6 minutes, so you have got a little bit of working time here to make sure that you're getting everything all nice and perfected. So just make sure that you take your time with it and get those edges nice and flush to your skin. Okay, and then to create the wound itself, I'm just going to run my spatula all the way through at the centre of that band of silicone to open it up, and then I'm going to use the spatula to push the silicone to either side to create the walls of the wound. If any of the areas are looking a little bit too thin, you can go back in with a little bit more silicone just to build up those walls a little bit more. You then want to set the silicone, so for this I'm using Ben Nye's Neutral Set face powder, but any translucent face powder will do, and you just want to very gently sprinkle and tap this powder into the silicone. You want to be very gentle because you don't want to disrupt any of the work that you've just done, but you want to very lightly tap that in and then brush away the excess powder. Now one of my favourite tricks to add texture to the silicone is, once I've set it, to take one of these disposable makeup wands and run this very gently over the top of the silicone. This is going to add a lot of texture and some very fine little lines and stroke marks throughout the wound. Now this is going to obviously help to give the effect of ripped flesh, so I'm just very gently running this over the wound and just trying to add a little bit more texture in there before we start painting. Okay, now speaking of painting, to colour this wound in, I am using the Ultimate FX palette by Dashbow. This is an alcohol activated paint palette, which means that you need to use 99% alcohol in order to activate the pigments within the paint. And I'm going to apply those using some incredibly cheap rubbish paintbrushes. You can pick these up off of eBay or Amazon. You can get like a pack of 10 for £1 or something like that. But you want to actually just take one of those smaller brushes and crunch the bristles between your fingers to get it really rough up, because this is going to add a lot of texture to the makeup. So I'm just taking that brush and dipping it in the alcohol, and then I'm going into the bruise tone of this palette. Now the fantastic thing with alcohol activated paints is that the more alcohol you use, the weaker the colour will be, and the less alcohol you use, the stronger the colour will be. This is fantastic for layering up colour. So first of all, I'm just going to apply a very light wash of this colour by adding quite a lot of alcohol to the paint. If you add too little alcohol and the colour is too strong, just dip your brush back in the alcohol and go over the top, and this will dilute the colour down. I'm then going to take the blood tone colour out of that palette and I'm going to apply a light wash over the top of that, but concentrate that colour more towards the centre portion of the wound, but make sure that that colour has lightly faded out into that bruised tone as well. Now this makeup is all about layering up those paints, so all I'm doing now is taking a fine detail brush with some of that alcohol and a little bit more of that blood tone colour, but this time I'm adding less alcohol to the paint so it's more concentrated in colour, and I'm going to apply that along the very centre of the wound. And Dashbow also makes this smaller little palette called the Bloody Hell palette, and this has got 4 red blood tone colours in it and 1 dark blue colour. And this palette here is perfect for doing this type of makeup, as it's all the colours you are going to need to create a bloody horrible wound. So if you don't want to pick up the full FX palettes, you can always get one of these instead. I'm then just going to darken up the wound even more. This is going to give it the appearance that it is a very, very extremely deep wound. So I'm just taking the blood tone, the blood stain, and a little tiny bit of the black hole colour from that Bloody Hell palette. Now with the black hole colour, you want to go very careful with this and only apply a tiny amount to the areas that would be the deepest. And then to get that blood splatter effect, I'm just taking that scruffy little brush again and the red mist colour, which is this bright capillary blood colour in that Bloody Hell palette, and I'm just going to stipple this over the entire wound. I'm then going to take a tiny amount of Thick Blood by Ben Nye. This is a congealed blood paste, and I'm going to apply this to the centre portion of the wound. This is going to age it up and make it look like this is a wound that happened a long time ago rather than a brand new recent one. And I'm then just going to take a little bit of cheap fake blood that you can pick up at any costume shop at around Halloween, and I'm going to apply that over the top of this wound. Now because this is a glycerin based product, it's going to give us a nice shiny gory effect. And then for the stitches, I'm just taking a small amount of Pros-Aide, which is a prosthetic adhesive, with a cotton bud, and I'm just going to dot that along the wound. I'm then going to take some small amounts of black thread and position these across the wound to make it look like the hand has been sewn back on. When you're doing this, you want to use some crosses and dashes. Just look up some reference photos of roughly done stitches and you'll see how to do it. But to blend those edges of those stitches into the skin and make it look like they're going through the skin, I'm just taking a small amount of silicone again, a little tiny bead of it, and I'm just going to place this at the end of those stitches and blend it into the skin. I'm then just going to take a small amount of the alcohol paints that we used before, just over the top of that little bit of silicone, just to make sure it's cohesive with the rest of the makeup. And once the stitches are done, the makeup is complete. This is the finished look. You have a really creepy reattached hand. I hope you guys liked this video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comment section below if you like these SFX gory videos, and I'll make sure I get more done for you. You can also now follow me on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. I'll leave links to those in the description section below, as well as a list of all of the products that I used. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.